The reason I started doing this marketing yourself thing was essentially inspired by this survey, which was done by Swizzec, where they were just trying to figure out like how important do people think marketing yourself is, and it was a huge disparity. It was like 93% of people said yes to it's important to market yourself, but then very comparatively few people did anything about it. Um, and I think the insight that I had was essentially that the very intense market yourself type of people, like the Tony Robbins, like the Gary Vaynerchuk, like the Seth Godin people, they seem too different from us. They don't seem like regular people. Like their whole job is to sell books that market yourself on marketing. So like we go to the extreme and then we don't do it. So I think for me, my goal with this chapter was to say like, okay, even if you're not a celebrity, your goal is not to be one of those. It's still useful to market yourself in useful ways. And for me, it was the reason I call it a tactic rather than a strategy is because you're not doing this all the time. It's not always on. You're doing this selectively when you have something to market. So the two situations identified were like when you've done significant that you're proud of or enjoyed, or you have some professional move or launch that you're trying to get out there that you want people to be aware of. Like no matter how quiet or how much you think you don't need anyone else, these are typically the times that you have something to market and to offer, and you want to get attention. Like that is a skill that you want to practice for your cause, for yourself, whatever that is. So that's kind of how I phrase it. Like you are a product, you work really hard on yourself, making yourself a great product. You owe it to yourself to spend some time on your marketing, even if you don't want to be a celebrity, because like it or not, people want to put you in a box. So you might as well help them. Does anyone have like initial thoughts based on this stuff? Like, does it resonate? Do you have personal relationship with this problem? I'm just gonna pause there. This is where I would play crickets if I had my soundboard, but I don't have my soundboard. Dorian?
Oh, I was gonna say I think I like the way you made it seem more sustainable, because that was always the issue with me is it seems like when you try to market yourself, like you were saying, other people make it seem like it's this thing you're doing all the time, and that's draining when you're trying to learn and work and other things. But when you're just focused on those launch times, it is a lot more sustainable, I think.
Yeah, it happens once a year. And then that's it. People don't hear from you anytime else, and that is still extremely valid marketing of yourself. And sometimes it can be super effective, right? Rahul Vohra is the CEO of Superhuman, and he has extraordinary mindshare for only doing one talk a year. He only shows up with one theme in mind per year, crushes it, and then he goes silent. And he tells people about this. He does these. Sorry.
I was gonna say that's like, what is that phrase? Like depth versus breadth or whatever.
Yeah. He'll write one article a year. This one, for example, and then he'll develop a talk track. He'll do a few podcasts, but every single time is on the same topic. So he'll time box it to like everyone. He'll do a podcast within like 1 week, and then everyone's like spreads it out, and it's always the same topic. And if you listen to him talk about the company, he has like 5 minutes where he's word for word exactly just repeating a very, very well-groomed phrase that inspires you and gets you interested in the product. And then he pieces out. So that's one format, I think, which works really well. And then the other approach I think I'm quite a fan of is the Cal Newport approach, where he has no social media, but people speak a lot of him because he has important books. I think his strategy is more it's more one book a year kind of. So these are his books, and then he publishes in traditional media, particularly focusing on where's his articles. Where's his articles? Particularly focusing on the New York Times, the New Yorker, stuff like that. These are just the articles that he's written, but they're high profile articles. And that's it. That's marketing himself. He makes $1 million a year just doing this. All right. People have their hands up. Chad. Well, the two Chads. Chad Stewart.
Yeah, I guess my kind of question is what would be the purpose of marketing yourself? I feel like it's a kind of silly question, but I kind of wanted to start from first principles
Yeah,
in
I
a
love it.
sense.
Right. So the purpose is you are a product, right? That you want to get attention for the stuff that for the skills and the outputs or the products that you've worked on. So no matter what it is, like whether it is you're marketing your skills or you're marketing a thing that you worked on, you still have to learn how to market yourself eventually, right? Like to meet people that you don't otherwise know.
So it's just kind of to expand your network in a sense and your influence.
I don't even think it's about influence. You can have zero influence and still market yourself. Just like to let people know what you're about, so that when they need someone like you, you are at least on the list instead of not on the list.
I understand. Cool.
Right? Like
Thanks.
if you
Oh, go
didn't, if you fail to make the list, you're not even in the consideration set. You don't even get invited to the interview. Like there's just so many things that you're just shut out because nobody knows you exist, or other people are just better at marketing than you. And it's like not a lot better, just like they at least try.
Mm-hmm. That makes sense. All right, thanks.
Yeah. I'll put it one more way, Chad. Which is, let's say it's not for yourself. Let's say you feel like this is very selfish, self-oriented. You see, like you think that people who are marketing themselves are in it just for fame, for money. But imagine that you have a cause that you care about more than anything in the world. Global warming, like human rights, whatever. You still have to market yourself for that. You still have to get people's attention. You know what I mean?
Yeah. I guess it's just about I have a friend who says it's not who you know, it's about who knows you. So I guess it's kind of
Interesting.
trying to
Interesting. That's a
feel
quote.
that.
That's a new quote. Yeah, that's new to me. I've never heard that one. It's not who you
Yeah.
know, it's who know you. Who knows you. That's amazing. Is that your friend's is that his original quote? He should publish that. That's a really good quote.
He says it a lot. I don't know if it's original, but he's the
Whatever.
first person
Yeah.
I've
Yeah. Tell him to write it up, or you should write it up. I don't know. Just it's that's really good actually, because a lot of people there's a similar quote. It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? It's not what you know, it's who you know, right? So you're actually taking a well-known quote and inverting that by saying it's who knows you. So that itself can be a fantastic title.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, thanks, Chad. Other Chad Elofson.
I was just wanting to kind of follow up on your thing with Cal Newport, because I started following him as I was starting my pivot earlier this year.
Yeah.
And him and Scott Young, the guy that wrote Ultra Learning, he was the MIT Challenge guy. They also offer a Life of Focus course that you can get. And that was the first thing that I really wanted to do. Was I was constantly on my phone, was to start working on not being on my phone. And I started reading his deep workbook, and currently I'm in his digital minimalism book right now. And definitely, they definitely have a lot of good information to provide you on essentially how to cultivate your career and make, what does he call it, career capital, as he calls it.
Yeah,
Being able to
I'm still
focus more.
looking. I'm still looking for a definition of career capital. I know that it comes from his other book, So Good They
So
Can't
good that you can't be
Yeah.
ignored.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly. The thing is,
there
you
is
know,
a
I think,
definition. I don't recall what it was, but I remember what it was. I remember reading about it.
Yeah. I mean, it makes sense. I've been doing on my podcast this week. I've been doing a series on Cal Newport, and he's writing. His latest is on the deep life, and
Yeah.
he has sort of three elements of that, which I quite enjoyed, right? Like it's like one, radically shift your life to align yourself to things you value and away from things that you don't value. Then two, practice, like gain insight from doing the thing and not thinking about it or reading about it, which is something
Yeah.
that we do a lot. And three is career capital. And I felt like three was the weakest because he's just like, just be good, just be competent. And I'm like, okay, I mean, easy for you to say, right? Like, but
Yeah, well, I've gone through him and Scott Young's class. I'm on the last month. The first month is just about learning about having that deep to shallow ratio. Deep work meaning that, you're totally focused on what you're doing, and shallow work being you're answering emails or answering instant messages or stuff like that. The second month, they go over the digital minimalism. So you essentially do an itemized list of how many apps are in your phone. You classify them whether they're crucial, optional, or neither, or both, or whatever. And then you're supposed to spend roughly about a month without those apps. And then you start working on a plan on how you'll reintroduce them after that 1 month. And typically what a lot of the more successful folks do is that they go into using just their computers more for some of those apps. So like Facebook, that be on Facebook, they do that. Like I read Deep Work back, I think in either February or January, and I haven't used Facebook on my phone for that long. That's how long it's been. And it's been very night and day compared to when I was prior to that, where I was constantly on my phone. And I was like, if I'm going to work on preparing for pivoting into development, I have to be able to focus. And right now that wasn't a possibility. So I did, I'm also part of Randall Khanna's Hack the Technical Interview first cohort. And that was the first thing I did, was go through the life of focus type stuff, because it's like it's not going to do me any good to try to do any pivots if I can't focus. So, and I think she's actually going to open up another cohort next month for that, and it's great for multiple different developers.
Oh my God, this website has gone 10x since I first saw it.
Yeah.
So I you probably know I'm friends with her, and we wrote our first books together. But wow, this has gone way more than I thought.
Yeah, we've had
awesome.
some folks that are already established developers find better jobs. It's just crazy. Yeah, it's been helpful for a lot of folks. For me, it's still been a struggle, but life happens, and
it's excellent.
With family, it's just been really difficult to make that pivot. And then we had a promotion at work, but then I found out, because it's a union job, that what they do is they start at the top of the seniority list for those that have been there longer. And then if they're qualified and they're offered the role and they accept the role, they don't offer to anyone else. So I'm like, well, that probably puts me about 10-15 years before I could even get into a role like that. And by then it's like, I'm not staying around much longer. So I've been there 2 years too long already. So
that's part of the thing I enjoy about marketing yourself. At the end of the day, the company that currently employs you, or the university that currently employs you, has one system of doing things, and they're not optimizing for your success. They're optimizing for everyone else, for their success. And so marketing yourself gives you options, like gives you ability to opt out of whatever system you're currently in. And sometimes that's a good thing. Sometimes it's bad, because it's also not good to have too many options. But yeah, having to wait 15 years for some kind of promotion, like that seems like it's not a good system for your success.
No, it's not,
Uh,
doesn't work for me. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not getting any younger and
Yep.
I want to
So
be building stuff and
yeah, you gotta you wanna build your skills and you want to market your skills. I focus on that quite a bit because even if you're the best programmer in the world, if nobody knows about it, then it kind of doesn't count.
yeah.
Um,
Are you still pivoting over into data science-y type stuff or are you still doing backend?
kind of. Well, I've been at Airbyte for 2 months, and what's interesting is like what I have is a fairly general skill set. So I'm not really actually a data engineer, but I'm close to data engineers and I talk to them a lot. And what's important for me there is to figure out what the opportunities in the market are, because someday I want to be a founder.
Yeah.
So my goals are very different than trying to pivot to a data engineer, which I would do differently if I was actually trying to do that.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Yeah. I would probably be close to a data engineer based on
Yeah.
the fact that most of my work is like, okay, get this prepped, get that prepped, but mostly it's all in Oracle. So it's really hard to market.
Then,
It's like I do everything in the database. Oh,
wow.
and so I had one guy pass on me because they were worried that I didn't have the technical background. It was like, oh,
Yeah.
you should at least try to see if I've got the technical background or not. So anyway,
Anyway,
that's all I got to say about the Cal Newport. Definitely very worth the effort
worth
if
it.
you want to
Yeah, I like him too.
be more focused.
We could do a whole meetup just on Cal Newport stuff, because I feel like you and I have gone deep on that stuff.
Yeah, I've
Um,
still got 2 or 3 books left to read of his. So
Yeah, but well, so one thing I was trying to come to was keep in mind it's not just reading, it's also doing. So
yeah. Oh yeah,
Uh,
that's the 3rd month of their Life of Focus is an actual basically a project.
yeah.
Now that you've
Um,
learned to focus, now you can have more time to do stuff. So
do stuff.
anyway,
So I have to apologize. I actually used the wrong account for this Zoom. So we are getting sort of a time reminder, but I still think I'm still going to try to push through this in some way, because I do want to make sure that we cover marketing. I think everyone knows like there is some level of importance, and I want you to be able to ask me anything that any sort of personal marketing questions that you might have. So let me get right to the bottom and then look for the chart here. So what we really cover in this chapter, and you can read the details yourself later, is to identify elements of your personal brand, right? To pick a domain that you're focused on, to have an inventory of the stuff that you have in terms of business value and in terms of your tech skills, and that outputs into marketing yourself in public and marketing yourself at work, right? Because it's not always you shouting onto social media channels, it's also internally within your company, making sure that people are aware of your skills and your accomplishments and pick you for promotions or future opportunities, right? So that is kind of the mental framework that we go through. And I'm happy to just kind of pause there and see if anyone wants to go in any of these directions. Chad Stewart.
Yeah. So I wanted to ask, when do you kind of call it in terms of trying to market yourself at work? Like, you're at the job, you're working the job, you potentially have accomplishments at your. I guess this kind of goes back to like there some people say you don't want to be not working, you not working, you don't want to be at a job for too little of a time or too long of a time, but like what are like the signs of, okay, I am investing way too much time with this company and I'm just no longer seeing the benefits. So what does that look like?
Oh, to me, that is a completely different question. So the marketing yourself at work is really trying to do well at work, right? Showing people that you are doing well and making sure that everyone knows what you can do for them so that you'll be identified for future opportunities. What you're asking is about when to leave. I think that is, I don't really have a question there. I think I have something about when to leave, maybe here, to stay or to go. And that is purely a decision about whether or not the company has your best interest in mind, whether you have something else out there that's more that's better for your opportunity, that's better for your career growth intentions. I have met extremely successful engineers who've been at a single place for 15 years. And they're super happy, and everyone's super happy with them. And quite honestly, there's a lot of things that you can only do after 2-3 years at a company, just because it takes that long to get to know everybody and for them to trust you and for you to trust them. That speed of trust is so important for getting real stuff done. So I don't think there's no internal timer for me. It's just more about, is it a right fit for what they want out of you versus what you want out of your career?
Okay, cool. No, thanks.
Yeah. Stuff on marketing. I love to use recap images, because then you can sort of see a menu of the chapter. Who's in what stage of, like, who wants help on, like, sort of working on a problem in terms of marketing? I feel like if there's anything where I'm like fairly well known for it, it's this, essentially. Okay. Not that many hands raised. Chad.
Sorry.
Dorian first, because Chad just went, and then Chad.
I read this a while ago, so could you go over Give Up Freedom?
Give up freedom. I know it's weird to say give up freedom, right? Which is essentially, that's what I'm telling you by you need a domain, by picking your domain and telling everybody what you're about. In other words, you're closing doors in order to open more doors. You know what I mean? So that's what giving up freedom means. It means that people like to see commitment. Literally, like, people will respect you as long as you said you spend significant time in something. Like, I'm a PhD in psychology, immediately confers some level of expertise in psychology, that you give deference to them, even though they may have done it in some complete nonsensical area that doesn't replicate, right? Like, people respect commitment. Like, if you have given up something in order to get this something, they're like, all right, we'll give you a shot as the domain expert. So this is what giving up freedom means. It's a provocative title for a pattern that you've definitely seen in your own life.
Right. Okay, I get it.
So yeah, this here's this is a real money story. You can see the linked talk here. This is a React consultant. He was actually a React consultant, but he didn't want to close the doors. He said he was a general dev consultancy. But then he eventually narrowed it down to, I help teams transition to React, 15 times more opportunities.
Right.
I even gave you the timestamp, I think, where he said this in his talk. So I highly recommend checking it out, because Corey House is someone I do think he has very limited scope. All his online stuff is just React advice. So he's only about his consultancy. He markets himself, but he has a huge family. He's very happy with it. More power to him. That is the kind of
niching
person
down.
He's marketing to exactly. He's a one-man show. He's marketing to exactly the kind of person that he needs. Gets enough business for the year. He's done. He doesn't have to be the biggest celebrity on earth. He just needs to reach the people that he wants to work with. Chad Stewart.
Yeah, so I might have asked this before, but like, in terms of, like, I guess, how do you choose a domain in terms of what you're interested in versus what is potentially profitable? Now, as I'm contemplating this question, I feel like this is something that if you were able to answer, you'd probably be doing it and making a lot of money.
Yeah. So there's a thing I talk about, Ikigai. I'm not sure if here. The thing I talk about Ikigai, right? Like, what you're interested in, or what you love, or what you're good at, versus what the world needs and what you can be paid for. Basically, my thesis is that this image makes it seem much more different than it really is. In reality, what you love becomes what you're good at, because you just do it a lot, right? So over time, what you love converges on what you're good at. And the internet, because it's such a long tail of diverse interests, converges on what the world needs versus what you can be paid for. If they need it, they'll figure out a way to pay it for you. Like, that's the creator economy. That's like all these sort of weird niche internet businesses that pop up. So essentially, really, it condenses down from 4 circles to 2 circles. How do you find the intersection of what you love versus what the world needs? and you try a bunch of things until you figure it out.
I that makes sense. Like actually, I'm kind of appreciate the kind of representation of Ikigai because I've heard of it before, and like I definitely like the idea of just kind of, you know, it's not 4 circles, it's 2, or not necessarily not 4
Yeah.
circles, but 2 circles is easier to kind of reason about than 4.
Yeah.
But yeah,
So-
thanks.
So read chapter 18 if you want more of that. Unfortunately, we are running out of time for today. I need to go switch up my account to the work account. But otherwise, let me know if you want more feedback on the marketing yourself chapter on Discord. And then we'll catch up next week for the last chapter. All good?
Thanks so much.
Short meeting today, but
Yeah,
thank
I'm
you.
actually I'm gonna hit you up because I do actually have a follow-up question specific to this. So
yeah, awesome. Let's do that. All right. Thanks, George. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Sean.
And see you next week.
yeah.
Bye.
Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.